After interviewing and coaching 350 plus podcasters, I've noticed a hidden cost that business owners are experiencing when they interview guests. That's slowing them down from faster podcast growth and monetization. Today, I want to reveal that so that you can avoid that same mistake. So look, imagine for a second you've landed in a new city. And again, just play along with me here. And you are madly addicted to getting haircuts. Like you love getting haircuts every single week. So you're in this new city. So what do you do? So the first thing you do is decide to go and get a haircut. So that's what you do. You find the nearest local barber. You go in and you have a sit down and you meet this guy called Fernando. Fernando seems great. He has an amazing energy, but you're still a bit skeptical, seen as a new barber, and you're kind of not too sure how it was going to go. Anyways, Fernando finishes your haircut and it is the best thing you've ever seen. You walk out feeling confident with a massive smile on your face. As you're walking around, people are giving you compliments, showering you with praises, telling you how amazing you look, and you get home and you can't help but just smile at the way that you look. Bloody hell, I wish I got a haircut from Fernando. Sounds pretty awesome. I'm yet to have that kind of experience. I mean, I've had a good haircut before, but yet to have that kind of experience. Anyways, as a haircut addict, you decide the following Monday to go in to get another haircut. Again, you want the exact same experience. So you go into the store and you sit down trying to search Fernando and you couldn't see him. But there was a barber who had a space that was free. So you sit down a bit skeptical, but you decide, you know what, let's go for it anyway. I had a good haircut last time. I'm confident this will smash it out the park as well. And this guy, he finishes your haircut and then he shows you the mirror. And the first thing you realize was that it wasn't that good. It was actually pretty bad. It kind of sucked, to be honest with you. But of course, you just spent the last 30 minutes having a nice conversation with this guy who you could tell genuinely put in the time and care into the cut. So you don't want to come off as a dick and awkwardly say, hey, by the way, dude, this sucks. So you smile while deep inside you're crying and walk out the store a bit frustrated and pissed off. And then the following Monday comes around, and of course, from your end, you're still thinking about your first haircut with Fernando. So the next Monday comes around, and you're just excited. So you go back into the barbers, and this time you're really searching for Fernando, and you couldn't see him. But you also didn't see the guy who gave you a haircut last time, so you're kind of pleased. Anyways, you find the next barber who had a free slot available. You sit down and get your haircut. And this time round, he asks you, hey, what do you think? He pulls up his mirror and shows you a reflection. Now, the haircut wasn't bad, but the haircut just wasn't quite what you were looking for. It wasn't that Fernando haircut. But this time, you're pretty pissed off. You stand up and you go to the boss who owns the store. And you ask him a very simple question, which is, dude, where the hell is Fernando? I want that Fernando haircut. And he looks at you awkwardly and kind of just says, dude, Fernando was just like, a guest trimmer. He just came to replace one of our staff who fell ill. He actually doesn't live in town. In fact, he doesn't live in this country anymore. So there's no way for you to get that haircut again. So you storm off pissed off and swear never to return to get a haircut from their store. Now, as a haircut addict, you need to find somewhere else to get your next fix. So you do. You find another barber nearby and you realize that their promise was very straightforward. It just said, same quality haircut every single time, guaranteed. That was their offer. That was their promise. So you walk in excited, but still a bit skeptical because the last 4 weeks has been kind of traumatizing for you. And you sit down anyways and you get introduced to the barber known as Fernando Jr. Now, Fernando Jr. gives you a haircut and shows you the mirror, and a bit skeptical, you kind of look up. But this time, a smile forms on your face. You're super excited and you get the exact same feeling you got when you first got your haircut with original Fernando. You walk out beaming with confidence, and every single Monday for the rest of your life, you go to Fernando Jr. to get your haircut. But why did you keep going back to Fernando Jr.? Well, it's pretty simple, right? Every time you went in, you knew exactly what you were going to get. You knew the quality of service was going to be the exact same. And you liked Fernando Jr.'s style. You enjoyed his conversation. You enjoyed his energy and his presence. You knew that it wasn't a risk going back every time because he was going to deliver the exact same value. You knew what you were going to get. That consistency is what helps you build a relationship with not just Fernando Jr., but with his store. So you stay loyal. Now, you're probably thinking, has this guy lost his marbles? Have I lost my marbles? Am I the one addicted to haircuts? Not quite. Like, the reason why I bring up the story is pretty simple. After interviewing and coaching 350 plus podcasts and working one-on-one with hundreds of podcasts to grow and monetize their shows, I've noticed that a lot of business owners who have interview-based shows, meaning they have a focus on inviting different guests onto their podcast, they tend to struggle to do three things. They, one, tend to struggle with having consistently high quality conversations with guests. Number two, their retention time, meaning the average length of time that listeners stay tuned for an episode, is oftentimes super low. And number three, they struggle to generate consistent sales. And it really all comes down to the principle as to why Fernando Jr. was so successful with his barber, is because he was just consistent. He was the only person providing that value, and people knew what to expect. But when you're a business owner who's trying to build an audience, you need people to build trust in you, your podcast, and you need them to know that every time they hit play, they're going to have the exact same energy, tone, the personality. Like, they're going to have a high value experience every single time. But when you focus on getting different guests onto your show, they might have a different message, a different persona, a different character, a different sound in their voice that your audience might not like. They might have a different banter, a different complete tone and energy to the show. So every time a new listener discovers your podcast, let's say they loved one episode, but then the next episode wasn't a banger because the guest wasn't as engaging, well, guess what? They're not going to stick around again. Or let's say, for example, one episode was really good, then the next guest episode was pretty bad, then the next one, they just didn't resonate, then the next one was also really good. That's 4 episodes for them to feel like they're getting that consistency. That's 4 episodes where they kind of would have gotten distracted, found someone else who gave them that consistency they are looking for in terms of content they're consuming. And on the other hand as well, for you as a business owner and as an entrepreneur with a podcast, we've all had the experience where we get a guest onto the show and they're not that engaging. I mean, you're kind of like toning off and like not really being engaged with the conversation yourself. But then you still have to publish the podcast episode, even though you feel like it wasn't that good. And even though the guest quality wasn't that high. You've all experienced it when you have an incredible guest who is an incredible storyteller, or they distill information in a very unique way. It's amazing. But then when you interview someone else who doesn't hit that standard, you internally feel a bit awkward and you publish the episode out even though you know you shouldn't because it's not that high quality. But you don't want to come off as a bit of a dick because you've just had this hour-long conversation with this guest who genuinely tried, who genuinely cared. And again, you don't want to come off as a dick and say, dude, that episode sucked. So you publish the episode anyways, and in doing so, hurt your brand's quality. And you deliver something to your audience and your listeners that isn't consistent, isn't that high level of standard. And that's why it's so difficult to grow and monetize a podcast when it's you constantly inviting different guests on. Your audience have a harder time building the like, know, and trust. And you have a harder time delivering consistent value and a high quality standard to your listeners. Now, yes, there are things you can put into place and screens you can do. But again, that's a lot of effort and a lot of work for your audience still not to build a like, know, and trust with you. And if you want them to buy, they, again, have to feel connected to you. So that's why we prioritize solid podcast episodes, because you're able to be the person that can keep the quality and standards super high. Your audience has a consistent voice they can quickly get used to. And when you have those two simple things, it becomes easier for your podcast to grow because more listeners keep coming back for more. It's easier to turn a first-time listener into a fan because you're the person setting the standards. You're not switching between different individuals. It's just you. And if you want your audience to eventually buy, become a customer, and join as part of your community, they have to build that like, know, and trust. So my advice would be, yes, still do guest interviews, but have a super high standard and try to make sure you deliver the exact same quality, the same feeling to people each time. And secondly, start exploring more solo podcast episodes to maintain a high quality of standards, which will allow you to grow your podcast way faster and allow you to start generating way more money from your show. So that being said, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.